What's up, Strandberg fans? My name is Ola Strandberg.
And I'm Jacob Collier, 6-time Grammy winner. So, Jacob, we were connected by Adam Rafowitz in
Yes. Arch Echo.
Arch Echo, and I looked it up. It's almost 3 years ago.
Right, that makes sense.
And he said at the time you had helped them produce something on their album.
Uh-huh.
But in fact, they were maybe recording something for your album.
That's true, yeah.
Which is incredible. And later when we met in Stockholm, you said, in 2024, I'll be shredding on guitar. Which also, now you're doing it.
I mean, I'm trying my best, you could say that, yeah.
And do you always plan ahead like that, or do things kind of just
happen by
evolve?
themselves? I think things just evolve, but sometimes I can smell something coming, you know. And I knew I was falling in love with the electric guitar slowly. I could feel it in my fingertips. And so, I wanted to kind of get ahead of that particular intention.
Yeah. So, tell us about this guitar.
Yeah, which leads us here.
It lacks not only a headstock, which people usually complain or accuse us of, but it lacks a string.
It does, yeah. Plenty is missing, but plenty is also present. So 5 strings, and this really began as a fever dream inside my head. My first ever guitar was a tenor guitar, 4-string tenor guitar. So it's just up there. I can go get it if you want, but it has 4 strings, and it's tuned like this. That's how it's tuned. It's a bit sharp, isn't it? There you go. That's how the tenor guitar is tuned. So it's about 1 octave down from a mandolin or a violin. I tuned the top string down to a D, so it's G, D, A, and D. This tuning defined my childhood of guitar playing. I mean, I got it when I was about 17, 18 years old, so late childhood, you could say, but I really, really loved the openness of it, the fiftiness of it. You could really find, really kind of just, open voicings, really. You know, and my brain was really expanding, because I was a bass player before I was a guitar player, long before, and so I was very used to fourths, the world of fourths. But so I think for me, the world of fifths felt fresh, new, and open. But I liked having the fourth on the top, because it meant that I could use my language that I had from the bass. So for many years I played this, and it was very much an acoustic guitar world. And then I started to dream more. If I just had one more string on the top of the 4 strings, so it felt like an extension to me.
Not a reduction.
Yeah, one more thing above 4. Then you'd have the octaves here and here. Yeah. So you go octaves and octaves, which is really cool. And I loved, in my head, imagining the feeling of playing it. You know, being able to essentially have these 2 strings as a bit of a drone. You know, they're always present. But then I can also all this, guitar-y, sort of bassy language. So that's how the dream came into my head. I thought, so it would be fifths on the bottom, and then fourths on the top, and it's symmetrical tuning. D, A, E, A, D, symmetrical, and in the middle. And I loved it, but I never thought it would come true. And then we sat down together in Stockholm, middle of 2022, in summertime, and I described the vision that I had. And I showed you that there's this acoustic version of the guitar that I'd been experimenting with, and you said, well, you didn't say anything, you just said, leave it with me, with a twinkle in your eye. And I know that was a magical moment when I realised that this was cooking up. And I can't believe how special it is. It's really all my dreams coming true.
Yeah, it's a fun challenge, I think, for us as a team. I mean, I thought that, hey, we could do this probably better than anyone else.
I'm sure that's true.
So, I'm thrilled at having arrived at this very colourful contraption.
It is quite colourful.
The
green and the red, I think, are my favourite touches now. But and obviously the cool thing is that the neck is a 6-string neck, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So there's actually plenty of real estate. You can bend notes even further than you would normally want to, and things like that.
Yeah. So who do you think is the target audience for this guitar?
Well, I always say this to people who ask, why would you do a 5-string guitar? First of all, you've got 5 fingers. So it just makes so much sense. You can play every chord one note per finger. Yeah. So I think everybody is down with that, right? Everyone has, well, almost everyone has 5 fingers. I feel like actually this is a really nice place to start the guitar, because the 6-string guitar is fine. It's fine. But this is actually, there's something really refreshingly easy about this. A major chord is just this, and you can bar really easy.
Yeah.
It's very, very like logical. All these kinds of things. I think just as someone who loves harmony so much, playing harmony on the piano, it's really lovely to be able to transfer that onto a guitar where basically a bar chord is already sounding great, and everything on top of that is just like whatever colours you choose. But I definitely think that anybody who plays the mandolin, the mandocello, violin, cello, and any of those other fifth space instruments, even like the bouzouki, for example.
Right, yeah.
That stuff is, or even the Appalachian Mountain dulcimer. People who are just used to fifths will really relish in the fiftiness of the bottom of this instrument. And then anybody who plays guitar or bass or any of the other sort of fourth space instruments will love this side of the guitar. So I think there's actually room for everyone here. Anyone who plays any stringed instrument, I think will find something of value here, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, we did an April Fool's joke with the ukulele a couple of years ago.
Oh, right.
And in the launch video for that, I think I said something to the effect that it's half the number of strings of an 8 string, it's half the scale, so it's only quarter as difficult to play.
That's great.
We're not quite there yet, but
I would say this is probably more than 1/6 easier than the guitar. in a sense, but it's cool. What I found is cool is that you can transfer language that you already have.
Yeah.
So the idea of all these kinds of voicings. That I've found from tenor guitar and fifth sub, it all just goes straight in, and then all the fourthy, all that stuff from the bass guitar. So that's all welcome as well. So it doesn't feel like starting from scratch. Kind of feels like everything gets combined as someone who's played both kinds of instruments. But it's definitely easier to get into. And when I was growing up as a child, I was really excited by and drawn to instruments where you kind of play one note and then it already feels encouraging. So for example, if you pick up a violin and play the violin, and this is no shade on violinists because I think violin is the most beautiful instrument in the world, but it's quite hard to make one note sound really beautiful. It takes many years to really master that. And obviously the same is true with any guitar, but I think when you compare it to something like the piano, for example, when you play one note, it already sounds like a note and you can work with that. So harmonically on this, that's I'm already in. I'm investing in. This feels cool to me. And so everything I'm going to change and add to that just feels like more welcoming and more open.
Yeah. And on Djesse Volume 4, there's one song which is not well, but the other one with Arch Echo,
100,000 Voices.
Which is like total shred. It's like
shred
gent metal shred.
Yes.
Are you playing guitar on that song?
So I'm playing a little bit of guitar on that song. I'm mostly playing acoustic guitar on that song.
Right.
And then I'm playing a little bit of electric as well. But I left all the sort of extraordinarily gnarly stuff at the end.
I was going to ask if you played that on this. That guitar, sounds like a very friendly
tuning. This is on that song actually. There's a few bits of but all that stuff is all that's Arch Echo. And I'm a huge fan of Arch Echo. I think they're amazing.
They are amazing, and they've been on board with Strandberg for a long time.
For many years. Well, I remember when I first met them in New York City, we had the first session, we were starting to dream about what kind of things we could build, and they all walked in with these, on their shoulders. I thought, hang on a minute, that's really cool. And then, they told the story of you and these incredible inventions of yours, and I was hooked.
Yeah. No, I'm so thrilled we could make this happen. And
me too.
It's now a reality. And
it is. Look at this. Real life. It even smells good.
And it's coming out initially as a limited edition guitar. We're making 55 pieces of this amazing 5-string guitar. And to those of you that aren't perhaps as adventurous, there is also a 6-string version.
Of the same model?
Yes.
Yeah, 6 strings.
So How do you feel about that, though? I wasn't sure like how to ask the question. Is it okay if we make a 6-string as well? Because you want to become a 5-string guitar ambassador.
Well, yes, I think I already am one. But I think the thing I'm proud of with this is not just the 5-stringedness, but also just the way it looks is so cool.
Yeah.
And I always love colour. I think colour is an important part of life.
Yeah.
And so I love the splashes of colour up the neck and the knobs and dials and all sorts of things here. And I just think it's a very beautiful, lightweight, cool thing, regardless of how many strings you choose.
Very true.
You know, so it's nice. And on stage for this year's tour, there's going to be a lot of Strandberg action, which is great, and changing things around. And so it's just nice that it's so light and it doesn't wear on you, and you can just run around, because I like to run around a lot.
You do move around a lot.
You can really leg it with one of these, and it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, can't tell you how excited we are to see this thing on tour.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited. Yeah. So, Jacob, thank you so much for letting me into your weird room. And we're very excited about this guitar of yours, and hope the tour goes well.
Thank you very much. And we're planning to put this up on jacobcollier.com, my website.
Yeah. And also, of course, on strandbergguitars.com. It's important to say that.